Here we go. We're going live, folks. Somewhere in here I got music, but I don't know what I did with it, so you might just have to forego it. Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss. Not quite ready to roll, but I'm rocking. Hope you guys are having a big day today, right here in the middle of the week. You guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comment section. Click like and share this video to your timeline. Pond Boss Magazine. It'll make you eligible for a drawing for a hat and for a mug. And this time there's something in this mug. Tastes like Dr. Pepper. So, glad I brought some water too. So glad you guys are checking in. I see Mike Cottrell, Jacob West, of course, John Wilson, Frank James, Brad Rom. Hello, guys. I see 15 people are checking in, but I can't see her. But there's Trana Madonna. Hey, Trana. John Funk from mid-Michigan. I bet you're starting to feel some pretty nice fall temperatures there. Hey, we had fall temperatures today. No, we didn't. 97 degrees along the Red River today. Really, really hot. Hi, John. So let's kind of get this party started. Debbie asked me a while ago what my topic was, and the girls asked me earlier in the day. I don't know. Debbie had an idea of maybe talking about winterizing your pond, getting ready for fall. I think that's great. Oh, looky there. I got to turn my speakers off. Okay, I'll do that. Now I can see everybody's questions a lot easier. See Chuck Brinkman, Brad Rom. Good to see you guys. Mike Cottrell. Nice to see y'all guys. Ed Brewer. Hi, Ed. Sweet. Fred Bingham is checking in. John Funk, just 74 today, 68 on Thursday. Well, you know what? We'll get our dose of that. But for now, 96, 97. I looked on my truck thermometer. It was 97 degrees at 3:30 today here along the Red River, which I guess we can complain about that. But we sure had a week in August where it didn't get above about 83 or 84. So I think that's probably fair. Debbie said maybe talk about winterizing a pond. I think since Trana is on here, I think I'm going to talk about what women want about their ponds. I had a meeting, because I can answer that question rhetorically, but I don't have any idea what women want. But I do know this. I met with a couple, and a very fortunate couple. I say fortunate. They've worked hard. They're in their mid-40s. They've been in the oil field business. Took over Dad's supply company out in West Texas a number of years ago, and started running that thing when he got out of college. He graduated from Texas Tech University, moved down in the Midland, Odessa area, started working in his dad's company, took the company over, bought his dad out, and now, fast forward, he was able to sell his company for enough money that he could semi-retire in his mid-40s, and they bought some property up in just not far from here in Oklahoma, and they want to put a pond on it. Well, he does. So I drove up there over the weekend and met with him. There's Justin Shank. Hi, Justin. Let's talk one of these days before long about your pond. You know, trying to get fish out in California, that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Chris Horsley, good to see you. Fred's hanging out in Branson, Missouri, one of your favorite places. There's Jim Morgan. Hey, buddy, you rock. You know, I wanted to comment on your post with that shirt, but I'm so illiterate about music. I knew it had to be cute, but it lost me. I can talk about fish. Jason says, what will happen to our newly planted eelgrass over the winter? As long as there's water on it, shouldn't be anything happen, because once those rhizomes, the roots start to take hold in the pond, in the lake bottom, even though they may go dormant over the winter, they'll come back in the spring. That's what they should. Mike Cottrell's rain dance is not working. Pond's getting low. Well, you better dance a little harder and offer up a burnt sacrifice, maybe like a ribeye or something. Anyway, met with this couple up in Oklahoma, and he was real excited. She wasn't quite as excited. So I just kept looking at her, looking at him, trying to read the crowd, so to speak, because when I go sit down with somebody and, look at their property, drive over with them and start trying to talk to them about what they want, they're really wanting information from me, but I can't give them information until I get some from them. So if I'm sitting down talking to you about your pond, the first thing I want to know is what's the mission? I mean, why'd you buy the place? I asked them, why'd you buy this place? Well, we bought it as an investment, but we think we might want to keep it a while. Our kids are in their mid-teens. we want to get them out of the country. I mean, out of the city into the country, because they had sold the company, moved to Dallas, bought this land in the country about an hour and 20 minutes from home. And I could tell she just was aloof. So I just thought about it a minute. I said, "Well, Diane, tell me about you." She said, "No, this is about him." And I said, "Whoa, wait a minute. You know, if he gets a new pond, do you get a new couch?" So I thought that, but I didn't say that out loud. So I just started asking her. Well, he wants Chuck wants a pond to fish in, and Diane doesn't really care. So I said, "Well, Diane, if he gets what he wants, what do you want out of it?" She said, "Oh, this is his deal." And I said, "Well, how do we make it your deal?" She said, "Well, we don't. It's his deal." I said, "Well, while he's fishing, what would you be doing?" She said, "Oh, I'd probably be in the cabin reading the book." So I said, "Well, what if you had your own space around the edge of the pond, like over there between those oak trees to read? Would you like that?" She said, "You know, that might be kind of cool." And I just darted a glance over at Chuck, and he kind of started smiling. He saw where I was going. Where I was going is if he don't like it, she don't like it, they won't like it. So I spent some time asking what she wanted and what she liked. And I would encourage you guys that are interested in ponds, to be talking to your other half. I usually say better half. Mine's way, way better. So my double better half. If she doesn't like it, there's no point in doing it. You know, because you can't get involved in it. And conversely, if she wants that and he's not into it so much, what's he going to get? So I did spend a fair amount of time visiting with them, and the end game was she really wanted a walking path. She wanted a place across from their cabin, where they want to build their cabin, to have a place that attracts birds. She wants a place to have a picnic where the kids can come out and enjoy it. She'd like a dock. So she was way, way more into the amenities, where he was into how do we build it, what's the process, how can I grow some big fish, where the business end of the rod and reel is just jerking it right out of my hands. That's what he wanted to know. So by the end of the 2.5 hour consultation, they were both pretty excited, because she could see where she could fit in. He saw where she could fit in, and she was a lot more enthusiastic about what he wanted. So, Chris Orsley says, "Should I fertilize my pond this fall?" No, you should not. What you should do is, here's the reason to have a bloom. There's 2 reasons to have a bloom on a pond. One reason is to block the sunlight off the bottom, to minimize aquatic plant growth so it can't grow into the masses that are noxious, that offend you when you're out there in your pond. The second reason is to create the food chain for newly hatched baby fish. Well, you're not going to have any of that in the fall. And if you do, even if you have newly hatched baby fish, if their food chain's not already there, they're not going to make it very long if they don't grow fast. So let's see here. We got Clayton Bounds. Howdy. Jason Epstead. So the grass will disappear above the dirt. If the dirt's wet, the grass will disappear, but the roots, as long as they're wet, they won't. So here's what I'm going to tell you. If the lake is drawn down and you've planted that eelgrass in shallow areas that can dry out, carry a bucket of water out there about once a week and soak that dirt until the water comes back up. Dion Myers, Todd Austin. Hello, Todd. Good to see you. So one thing I was going to talk about tonight, Debbie mentioned to talk about winterizing a pond. You know, you winterize your lower unit on your outboard motor. You winterize your aeration system. You know, you winterize your car so your block doesn't freeze. Yeah, Jim says, happy wife, happy life. I'm going to toast to that. Here, here. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like, share this video to your timeline. Makes you eligible for a drawing for a mug. Now, your mug won't have anything in it. This one's got Dr. Pepper and a Pond Boss hat. I think that's real Dr. Pepper. So there's Leanne checking in. Leanne is feverishly working on 2 big projects right now. One thing she's working on is getting our ad run list for the November-December issue of Pond Boss. The last 4 days I've been hunkered down as much as I can, cranking out articles. I've either edited or written, I think, 14 articles on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and today, and I've got like 3 more in the November-December issues ready to go. I think we've got some really cool topics. One of them is going to be about winterizing your pond. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a tease and a little bit of a jump start on that particular article coming up in the November-December issue. The second thing that Leanne's working on is the Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology. We named it that because I can't think of a better name. Well, we've got, I think, 8 people that have committed and paid. We've got 3 more that say they're coming, which leaves us room for 1 to 3 more people, depending on the situation. So I want to cordially invite you, because I'm pretty excited about it. And at 64, I don't get excited about a lot, but I'm excited about this. We've got an outstanding program lined up. I've got a couple of speakers. We've got Dr. Sean McNulty coming over from Montgomery, Alabama, American Sport Fish Hatcheries. He's going to talk about how fish farms work, how to buy fish. He's going to talk about the F1 tiger bass, how you grow them or how they produce them. He's going to talk about feed training largemouth bass on a large scale. So it's going to be fun with those guys. Plus, we've got about a half to 3/4 day field trip lined up where we're going to go about 60 miles north to a 7,000-acre high-fenced ranch with a 64-acre lake on it, a 20-acre lake, a couple of smaller lakes, and some hatchery ponds where we're going to electrofish. We're going to do lavage to see what the fish have eaten. We're going to tag a bunch of fish, identify fish, weigh and measure, collect data, water chemistry, seining the hatchery ponds, transport fish. So you're going to learn about water chemistry. We're going to analyze volumes and species of aquatic plants. You're going to learn about the different species, size classes, how to judge a fishery. You're going to collect fish with gill nets, trammel nets, or not trammel nets, but fight nets, electrofishing, and seining. So it's going to be pretty dadgum cool. And I think the most exciting thing to me is who's coming. Because we've got people that have signed up, which guys are coming from all over the nation, from as young as their early 30s. One guy coming is in his 80s. And he's so excited to come and learn. I'm fascinated by that. But getting all these minds together and exchanging ideas and asking questions, interacting. So not only are you going to have a giant amount of information at hand, you're going to make new friends. And you're going to make new friends with people that want to be doing things similar to what you want to do with different methods. So if you get a chance, check us out. In the latest issue, past couple issues, there's a brochure. If you want to know more about it, it's not cheap. It's $1,500. And that's an all-day Thursday, all-day Friday, all-day Saturday, a little bit Sunday morning, which is mostly going to be fellowship. You're going to have social time. The food's going to be great. And as long as you sign up in time, we can include some housing with that. Now, most of that's either going to be in a bunk room with other people. Matter of fact, it will be, or in a cabin with other people. So we've got a limited amount of bed space. However, there are rooms close by. So make plans to come. And you're going to, one course we're going to do, an all-day deal on Thursday pretty much, is going to be basic pond management, where we're going to go through all the basic things and get you primed and ready for the, yeah, Jim, I see what you're saying there. Yep, this kind is Dr. Pepper. There might be something in that Dr. Pepper. There's Liz Adams. Hi, Liz. Barry Mounts. How long should I continue feeding my fish in my 1.5 acre pond in South LA? I've been told to stop feeding in the winter. Here's Barry, and the fact that you're in Louisiana, let me address that. Now, the recommendation I'm going to give you is different for a couple of things than what I might tell somebody in Oklahoma or somebody in Kentucky. But what I'm going to tell you in South Louisiana, that your fish are probably going to feed most of the winter time. Now, water temperature, typically once it gets down below about 55, fish stop feeding. Now that's not going to be you're in South Louisiana, you're probably not going to see your water temperatures get much cooler than 55. So I don't know that I would feed them the same amount that you feed when the water temperature is 75, because their metabolism rate will slow down, so their food requirements will drop. However, the mass of fish will go up. So here's what I'm going to tell you. You feed those fish, they'll clean up in no more than 5 minutes, and that's enough. If they're not cleaning up the fish, if they're not eating all that good fish food, then back off. Don't feed them quite as much. Now, you do have a caveat that we might not see in Kansas. You have some wintering grounds for some predatory birds. The thing about South Louisiana is, even if you've got birds that aren't eating fish, if they're hanging around your pond, they're adding to the nutrient load by what's coming out of the south end of a northbound bird. So pay attention to the birds. Plus, you have these other little creatures called alligators that don't live in Alaska. So alligators are predators. You've got issues with predators that people farther north, like in Arkansas, northern Arkansas, aren't going to have. So pay attention to your water, pay attention to the predators, and pay attention to your fish behavior. Now, one thing about feeding all year long is, even when you're feeding Aquamax feeds like MVP, they're converting that feed, which is Purina Mills feed, which is my favorite. I love the fact that Purina has spent time with research and development to come up with products that serve our niche. And they're top line products, fish meal based fish food. Anyway, when you're feeding that fish food, they're going to convert it like 1.3 to 1, 1.2 to 1, something like that, which means that there's going to be a lot of conversion to meat and a little bit of conversion to waste. Your water has to process that. So one thing I would think about, Barry, in South LA is your water quality can deteriorate and you're going to have predators that other people don't have. So pay attention to those two things. I think it would be a wise idea to aerate. So if you got electricity nearby, I'd think about aerating. Here's the thing, an 1.5 acre pond, it's got 5 years worth of fish growth. All it takes is 20 minutes of a bad algae bloom or an oxygen depletion stirred up by a turnover, and you've lost those 5 years worth of growth. And that you can't, it's just really hard to buy that back. You can, but it's going to be a big check. So the fact that the aeration system for you, it would be more of an insurance policy to mitigate the risk of water quality degradation. That's what an aeration system will do for you in South Louisiana. So I would do that. Let's see here. There's Joseph Reynolds. Chris Horsley, I ordered Aquatic Plants ID guide and Just Add Water from your website last week. I'm really excited about getting these into my library. Well, let me tell you, that Aquatic Plants ID, that's a little card deck, if it's the one I'm thinking about. And, when it comes to trying to deal with aquatic plants, the number one problem that I see with people across the entire nation is they'll say things like, I've got moss. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. To me, that's like saying, I have cows, or I've got bugs. Unless you can figure out what species you've got and then learn about that species or those species, you can't really come up with a good strategy on how to manage those aquatic plants. Jim Morgan's on here. Richmond Mill Lake, Kingfisher Society. Check those guys out. That lake is by far the most intriguing lake that I've ever had the joy of meeting. And I tell you, I look at lakes and ponds, I don't look at them as people because they're not. It's a puddle of water. But everyone's got its own personality. One of my favorite things about Richmond Mill Lake, Richmond Mill Pond, it was built in 1835. Mules, Fresno shovels to capture water to turn a grist mill for the community back then. And Laurinburg and Laurel Hill, North Carolina, ended up for a long time being a textile mill factory town. It was a company town. And Jim's family were deeply involved, entrenched in that business. Matter of fact, they owned, I think, 5 of the mills for a long, long time. Well, Richmond Mill Pond, even though it was designed to harness water to turn a mill, it ended up creating its own life. Well, back in 2000, shortly after that, Jim decided to drain the lake and do some massive repairs, actually rebuild the dam. And when he did, he wanted to turn it into a productive resource. So we figured out a way to grow some fish. But the thing that fascinated me the most is that lake was primed and ready for just massive amount of aquatic plants. But that didn't happen. What happened was there were plants that grew, and to this day they still do that. but they never outgrow their welcome because by the time they get up into mass, other plants grow in and kind of crowd them out and keep them at bay. So there's probably 20 different species of aquatic plants in Richmond Mill Pond, and they all complement each other. So what I'm telling you is when you're learning about those aquatic plants, not only learn about the plants that are bothering you, but learn about other plants that are there with them so you can be smarter about how you decide to manage them. If you want to open up a hole, for access, that's fine. If you want to clear out the whole pond, rethink that, because when you kill those plants, you may get something else that you don't like even more. So learning about the plants is key. I'm glad you bought that aquatic plant ID guide. And Just Add Water, oh my gosh, that is one of my favorite books. Mike Otto wrote that book. And basically that book is, for you guys that don't know, Mike Otto has been in the bulldozer, earth-moving, house pad building premier fishing lakes for over 45 years. I think he's 66. His first job was helping build golf courses in Florida, and he was the stick man, he said. He followed the bulldozers around picking up sticks and roots and getting them out of the way so when they built the golf course, they didn't have to contend with all that stuff. But now he's considered one of the nation's leading and premier lake builders. And this is his book that takes you through his experiences in time. And that book came together from a bunch of the stories that he's written in Pond Boss. So I'm glad you bought that. Let us know what you think about it. Let's see here. Chris Broussard owns Shepherd's oh gosh, I know how to say that. Fish hatchery in Maurice, Louisiana, and Lafayette. I've been reading Pond Boss for the last 30 years. Dude, that's pretty cool. I could read them over and over. Thanks so much for putting on this live show. It's greatly appreciated. My website is stockpond.com. Donald Lindsley turned me into Pond Boss 30 years ago. That's great. Well, Chris, thanks a lot, man. Yeah, you know what? Why don't you give me a call? Call the office, leave your phone number, and I'll call you back. Phone number at Pond Boss is 903-564-6144. So, check that out. Give us a call, and let me call and talk. I'd like to visit with you because there's some things we can probably do together. So, I got to remember how to say it. I know it's Acadiana. Is that it? Laugh at me, boys. There's Danny Mack. Hey, Danny, I heard you send an email in. Good to hear you. Hope you're going to get to join us. I had a brief conversation with Leanne. She didn't tell me a whole lot about it. Let's see. Scott Lindsay, are there things I can do this time of year or as the cool season comes to lessen the amount of filamentous algae in my pond come spring? Outstanding question. Let me see what Dave Weber says. Hi, Bob. I keep reading a very interesting article in Gamekeepers Magazine this week about pond siphon overflow systems. Wondering if you or Otto encounter these very often and any negative side to using this system on my next new pond. I'm going to tackle that one first. No, Dave, there's no issues with the only thing about siphon systems is you have to have a device, usually a valve on top of the siphon that can break the siphon so you don't drain your pond. Actually, Otto's installed a number of them. I've designed a number of them. Otto and I both believe in siphons, so yes, we do like that. Scott Lindsay, I'm glad you said that. Here's where I want to go with the topic about winterizing your pond. Let me tackle Scott's question right now. Is there anything you can do this time of year to lessen the amount of filamentous algae in my pond come spring? I am not a giant proponent of pond dye because pond dye interferes with the food chain of most ponds. But here is one exception. Pond dye will prevent UV rays from penetrating into the pond bottom, and that's where filamentous algae grows. It grows on the pond bottom, it grows on rocks, it grows on plants, then it dies and it breaks loose, then you have mats of unsightly filamentous algae all over the pond. Well, if you use pond dye, and I don't remember where you are, Scott, but if you'll put some in about 2 months before your water begins to warm up, which that might be early to mid-January, if you're south of the Mason-Dixon line, then that would be I think that'd be a good idea, because what you could do is you could minimize the risk of filamentous algae growing by blocking the sunlight off, but your timing needs to be to where the dye is diluted or runs its course and fades away by the time the water temperatures get up into the low 60s, upper 50s. And that timing is all about that right there. There's Kyle McKean and Mike DeMint. Hi, guys. Scott Lindsay, South Cackalack. Okay, you're South Carolina. So I think you fit along the eastern seaboard, plus you're in the southern part of the southern tier of states. Yes, you can use pond dye, and I would do that probably the second week of January and decrease visibility down to about 18 inches. If you'll do that with pond dye, and you can live with the color, you don't have to buy blue. You can buy, I think there's blue, there's red, there's black. A lot of guys use black. And it looks pretty good. Actually, when you put it in a pond, it looks almost natural. You wouldn't think that when you're looking at it, but it does. So I would sure think about that. Hello, Kyle. Good to see you, man. And you guys know the drill. Holy cow, it's almost already 7 o'clock, and I haven't even talked about anything yet, really. Hashtag Pond Balls Magazine, like Mike Dement's doing. Click like, share this to your timeline. You're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and a Pond Boss mug that knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. Mike says, Alex Short joined. Mike Dement says, when are you shocking around Memphis? You know, I don't know. I tell you what, do this. Just send me an email and just ask that question, and I will forward it. For you guys that don't know, I've been in the pond management business. This is my 40th year. I've been doing it a long time. Started when I was a little bitty boy, 24 years old or whatever. So anyway, I sold the pond management side of my business. I still travel the nation, designing fishing lakes, helping people create fisheries management programs. But when it comes to the day-to-day work, I sold that part of my company to American Sport Fish Hatchery out of Montgomery, Alabama. So now they've got an office right here where I am in Texas. So they're the ones that do the electrofishing. So the lakes in Memphis, we got several lakes around Memphis, northeastern Arkansas, Memphis, and Mississippi. They get an annual fall electrofishing survey. I'm not sure when they're going to do that because that's going to be American Sport Fish. But if you'll send me an email, I'll sure respond to it and talk to you about it and see what you want to do. Okay, let's see here. Joe Sipes is in. Hi, Joe. Good to see you, buddy. Kyle says, I stocked fatheads in February and have not done anything since. Can I stock bluegill this fall? Absolutely. Just drop me a note. I won't remember it tonight, I promise, because my wheels are turning about all this stuff. But if you'll drop me a note, my email, I'll tell you what, send it to info@pondboss.com. That's what you can do. Send it to info@pondboss.com, and then I will respond to that for you guys that have questions. There's Mike Rosa. Good to see you, Mike. So anyway, going back to the topic, is I was, every time I sit down to write the next issue of Pond Boss, almost every magazine has got an editorial calendar that's thought out a year in advance. I don't do that. I'm a fish guy. I'm a fisheries biologist that I've learned how to write, and I've learned how to write because I've had a good mentor, and I've written a lot. And then I took over as editor, not having any idea about how to be an editor. So I've learned by the seat of my pants, but since Pond Boss magazine is pretty much a part-time gig, I spend 5 days every other month putting Pond Boss together. I really haven't taken the time to do an editorial calendar. So when I get ready to sit down and write the next issue, I am thinking about topics that are pertinent to that time. So I've been thinking about what's pertinent to November, December, and this morning I was trying to come up with something that readers would like, appreciate, and be able to use. It's really easy to sit down and write an article about how to winterize your equipment. You can winterize a feeder, you can winterize your aeration system, you can winterize your boat, your pumps. If you've got a well, you need to winterize your well to make sure it doesn't freeze. And so it's easy to write about that. But as I thought about it, there's James Sampson checking in. Hey, James, good to see you, buddy. So as I was thinking about it, I thought, what is pertinent? So I thought, you know what? I'm going to write an article. So I'm going to give you a little heads up about this article that's coming up. But here's basically the gist of that article. It's about what plants do, what water does. So as the water temperature begins to drop, the density of water increases, so water becomes heavier. So from now on till about the middle of October is typically when our ponds that aren't aerated turn over. So when that warm layer of water cools to the point that is similar to the temperature of the layer of water beneath the thermocline, When those two temperatures get close to the same, they'll intermingle. And when that happens, that cooler layer of water that's been sitting on the bottom will belch and come up and mix with that upper layer of water. And when that happens, there's currents, there's smells. The water wants to release the gases that have been trapped down there from decomposition for the last 5 or 6 months. So when that happens, and the days are now getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, temperatures are dropping, plants aren't photosynthesizing as much, they're not feeding themselves, and they start to decline. Now that doesn't mean that plants are going to go dormant. Some plants will, some won't, but most plants will sink. About this time of year, cattails have outgrown themselves. They're done. If you look at your cattails starting about now in the next couple of weeks here, probably different for John Funk up in Michigan, but you'll start to see the leaves of the cattails turn brown. They're going dormant. And then the cattail heads will start to burst, and when they burst, seeds go everywhere. So what happens is, as these plants begin to go dormant, they don't really go to sleep. They just rest a little bit. You know, they've collected all the carbohydrates they could get. They filled the roots up of the tubers of cattails, pondweeds, plants like hydrilla, which I hope you don't have. And so those plants are preparing themselves for some downtime. Water cools off, it gets more active in food production in a spurt, and then the fish behavior goes nuts because now the water temperature is getting into that range where fish, especially warm water fish, are the most active. They are going to really be feeding and gorging on the food chain that has reproduced and expanded through the summertime. So now these fish, the game fish especially, are going to be, and the forage fish as well, they're going to be feeding heavily because they innately, instinctively know that times are going to get hard, and they've got to store up as much fat, build as much flesh as they can between now and the time the water temperatures get below their prime operating temperatures. So that's one of the cool things about nature. So your fish activity is going to go up. So right now is a good time to, between now and say Thanksgiving is a great time. If you're going to do a fall electrofishing survey to find out your status, that's a good idea. We've got a number of clients who this time of year want to do the fall surveys. That's why some of the guys in Memphis are doing theirs. And so if they need to make any adjustments. So if the food chain has declined as the predator fish numbers have gone up, that electrofishing survey will tell that, and they can cull some fish. And if they need to stock some additional fish, they can do that to rebuild the food chain so this burst of growth for these fish that need it, they'll have it. You know, so there's a lot of things going on underwater right now that weren't going on a month ago. You know, a month ago when the surface water's in the 90s and the water above the thermocline's 84, there's not a lot of fish growth going on, especially with fish like largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, crappie in bigger waters. Not so much bluegill. Bluegill are going to feed even though the water's warm. They're going to feed. They're going to feed when the water's cool. You know, because they have to be able to compete out there in the world. Chris Horsley, I have a 4-acre pond in East Texas close to Shreveport with lots of red clay. We drained and renovated November 2018, which is almost a year ago, stocked with copper-nosed bluegill, red ear, and fatheads in March 2019. My goal is to have big brim and a few big bass. I plan to stock F1 bass in the spring of 2020. But I've caught a few 6-inch Kentucky bass and green sunfish. Do I need to remove the bass and the greens? The copper-nosed and the red ears are thriving. Yes, you do. Go ahead and remove those fish. Spend some time catching those spotted bass. Spotted bass, since you want some big fish, your best shot at those big fish are the F1s that you stock next spring. Now be sure to get them from a reputable source. I've bought fish from American Sport Fish for years and years and years, and I've always appreciated their customer service and the quality of their fish. Of course, I just sold my company to them, you know, and I want you to work with them. When you have a source, be sure you're happy with that source and they're supplying what you know you want. Now, going back to the Kentucky bass, I would catch those because Kentucky bass don't need to be but about 9 or 10 inches long, and they'll start reproducing with your other bass once they get a little bit bigger. I know there's water in this cup. Now, the green sunfish, I don't know how many you're catching, but go ahead and remove them. Green sunfish have a big mouth. They spawn once a year. Bluegills have a small mouth, and around Shreveport, Louisiana, they're going to spawn 5 times a year. So it's a matter of just a few years before the bluegill will outcompete the green sunfish, because the bass are going to be eating a lot of the reproduction of both those species of fish. Just by sheer numbers, you're going to see bluegills outcompete the green sunfish. But early on, the green sunfish have an advantage because they have a bigger mouth. So I would say go ahead and take them out right now. I don't know how many you've got, but I'd be taking them out. And since the Kentucky bass, spotted bass, are not your target species, I'd be taking them out as well. Going back to winterizing a pond. One of the things about winterizing a fishing pond is you want to be sure that, now the further north we go, we get up into Ohio where John Wilson is, we get up into Michigan where John Funk is, even like the Pacific Northwest to some extent. But if we get up into the colder states, which includes New England, and the tier along that pretty well is along the Canadian border up to about the middle of Washington and Oregon, that tier of states, it's real important that your plants are pretty well dormant, because if they're not, they're going to respire during the winter. Okay, now if you have clear ice, which isn't common, where the sunlight can penetrate, then you're going to see some photosynthesis that produces oxygen. Now, for you guys that have a lot of plants underwater, you may think about aerating in the north, but don't do it in the middle of the pond. If you have a bottom diffused aeration system in northern waters, move it shallow. Put it in water about 5 feet deep, and then run it to keep a hole open just along the shore somewhere, because you don't want to do, there's 2 things you don't want to do. You don't want to cool your water too much. You want to keep that bottom layer where the water temperature is 40 degrees. You want to leave it alone. The only reason to aerate, to have open water in northern ponds, is if you've got a lot of aquatic plant growth or a persistent algae bloom or plankton bloom. Hey, Stephen Barton, good to see you, buddy. Looked like you had a pretty good project going on with some habitat. Sound like you work with Moss Back and some other guys with the Texas Parks and Wildlife. Kudos to you guys over at Lake Proctor. Good thing. So working on some habitat things. More things about winterizing your pond is, I think when it comes to the fishery, one of the most important things to do is to make sure that your food chain is bolstered and set going into the winter. Because what you want is you want your fish to really gorge themselves from now until the water temperature hits about 50. So if you've got lots of food, I've got a couple of clients that are just adamant about feeding their bigger bass rainbow trout. So there's a lake outside of Oklahoma City and one outside of Paris where both those clients, they want to buy 6 to 9 inch rainbow trout to target their 3 pound and up bass. So we do that. We'll go take some rainbow trout over there right after Thanksgiving and stock them in those lakes, and it seems to work because we see relative weights coming out of the wintertime that are higher than they probably should be with the amount of natural forage fish that are in there. So there we go. Steven said they spent $20,000 in Little Old Proctor Lake. I think that's just astonishing. Proctor Lake years ago, it's just one of those unsung lakes that people just don't hear about. And I can remember when I was working with Harold Arms decades ago that part of his business was centered around selling crappie minnows around Proctor Lake. So Proctor Lake used to be some really, really good crappie fishing. Brandon White, I still want to see Justin Stain on here. I think I've had Justin on here once. He and his wife just had a baby, so since he got married a little over a year ago, man, he's got his hands full. He's got it going on though. So Brandon, if you know Justin, just drop him a note and say, hey, pester old pond boss to be on his show, and he can call me and we'll get him on. So, Stephen, you caught a crappie on it that evening. That's pretty cool. Put the habitat out, circle back, and catch some fish on it. That's nice. So let's go back to winterizing. And Stephen, if you got some ideas, or John Wilson, if you're still on, if you guys got some ideas, give some tips to people about what they need to be thinking about winterizing their pond. Now, of course, everybody knows to winterize their equipment. I've already stated that a couple times. Your aeration system, your feeder, the lower unit on your boat, pumps, put a rebuild kit in your aeration system, change the air filter, those sort of things. Take care of your boat, take care of your dock, take care of your equipment. But when it comes to winterizing a pond, what a lot of guys do is they get so wrapped up in football season and hunting season that they're not paying attention to their pond. That's the time when you really need to be paying attention to it on a couple of different aspects. You guys throw some thoughts out there at me. There's Dave Davidson. Howdy there, Dave. Good to see you, buddy. Glad to see you on tonight. One thing that's real important is look for signs of predators. We're about to have migration of birds from north to south. And it's common for flights of predatory birds to land on people's ponds. They don't really understand the impact. Now, you're limited to what you can do about it. There's some noisemakers you can use to get rid of them. I think that's a smart thing to do. But one of the biggest predators that's been an issue for the last 4 or 5 years, more so than ever, are otters. Be looking for otter sign. If you look for otter sign early and you can find it, otter signs or slides where they're coming into the pond, it's scat with scales in it. Spend some time walking around your pond and looking. Maybe even set up a game camera along the edge of the dam or along the side of the pond and see if you can see activity. If you can see that, knowing about otters right now can help save you the headaches of trying to figure out how your pond got ruined next spring. Let's see. Stephen Barton, I installed a thermometer with a memory on the dock to measure water temps to see if and when the shad might die. That's a great idea. What he's talking about there is threadfin shad die when the water temperature hits 42 degrees. And one of our jobs as biologists is to counsel with people in the spring, should we restock threadfin shad? Well, if we don't know that there's been a die-off, how can we tell them? And a lot of times when that temperature is that cold, people won't be going to their lake, won't be going to their property, so they may not see that die-off. And here's what happens. When threadfin shad start reaching their lower lethal limit, they'll start rising to the surface in the afternoon because the temperature's just warm enough to keep them from dying in the afternoon. And when that happens, if you're not far from a public lake and there's seagulls around, big flocks of seagulls will come and pluck those dead or dying shad right off the surface. And you think it's kind of cool because they're coming, but what you don't know is what they're doing, is they are plucking off those shad just before they die. So what Stephen is saying is when he's monitoring temperatures, if the water temperature drops to 39 degrees for 3 days, shad are dead. So he can confidently go out there and tell that client next spring, yes, we do need to restock threadfin shad, but if the temperature never drops below 44, then you're probably fine because those shad are going to be fine to be enough. Stephen Barton also run a website called reportcormorants.com. That's an outstanding idea. If you guys have cormorants, especially guys in Texas, and you know what, I'm embarrassed to tell you that I haven't looked at that website yet, but I have been hearing about it. And I know Stephen is a big proponent of it. But what the agencies are trying to figure out is the impact and the volume of cormorants that we get on our ponds. If you're getting cormorants, I'll tell you what, spend a few minutes and go to reportcormorants.com and look at it. Because what's going on now is you could get a depredatory, whatever the word is, predatory depredation permit. Woo! Depredation permit to harvest X number. And so you can't get that anymore. Now there's a number of reasons for it, which doesn't matter, but cormorants can decimate your fishery. So can otters. So one of the winterization things is pay attention to that. And so when you see cormorants, spend a little time. Jason Nipstat's reported on that. That's outstanding. Good to see that. So you guys, that may be there's the tip of the night, folks. Reportcormorants.com. Stephen Barton, you're a hero, dude. Way to put that on there. Good to see Connie Bigman. Tyler Cole's checking in. Tyler's thinking about building a pond on some property not far from the Brazos River. My son just got through buying 28 acres between Navasota and Brenham that's not far from the river down there. Pretty cool place. Got a little pond on it. We just renovated. So good to see you. What other winter type things? Wintertime is, there's an article coming up in Pond Boss. I remember in the 80s, one of the common recommendations was a winter drawdown, where you drop your pond level about 3 feet, and the primary function was to kill unwanted amounts of aquatic plants. Well, that recommendation doesn't come around very much now because there's ways to take out plants that are easier. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget a time that I made that recommendation. This was probably in 1981 or 82. I was working with a rancher who wanted to take 2 or 3 of his stock ponds that he fenced off, and he wanted to turn those into fishing ponds not far from his ranch headquarters out west of Vernon, Texas, where it's pretty arid. And I said, one thing you can do is you can take about 3 feet of water off this pond, and it'll expose all that pond weed that's been growing for 5 or 6 years and to your frigid winter temperatures and kill it. He looked at me, tilted his cowboy hat back, and he said, boy, he said, telling a rancher to take water out of a pond is akin to cattle rustling. It's a hanging offense. And I kind of drew back and I thought, you know what? He's probably right. Out there, the water has much greater value than the pond weed, but in 1981, we didn't have aquathol. We didn't have some of the herbicides that we've got now where we can actually manage aquatic plants. But I've got a story in there about drawdown. Now, I've got a question from somebody today in an email or a private message. I think they're in Maryland, where the pond is dropping because that part of the planet's in a drought. And he said his pond's gone down about 3 feet. Well, in the article that is going to be in this next issue of Pond Boss, the top 3 feet of most ponds equals the volume of the rest of the pond. So what happens if a pond does draw down 3 feet in the wintertime? Well, if the temperature gets cold enough and the grass of the ground dries up enough, it's going to kill those plants. And it's probably not going to kill cattails because their tubers are going to be wet. It's probably not going to kill lotus because its tubers are going to be wet, 10 inches down in the ground. But it probably can kill bushy pondweed, and it can kill American pondweed. But wait, they have tubers and seeds. American pondweed's got little seed heads. So dropping a pond or letting a pond go down just to let the plants die is not necessarily a good strategy. Now, what also happens, especially in the wintertime, when a pond drops that level, and the majority of the habitat, especially for baby fish, is around the perimeter, it forces those fish out into open water. And if they don't have structure, cover, habitat, they're open to being eaten. And so what happens, the big fish really chow down on the small fish. The big fish get bigger, the small fish go away, the remaining fish grow, and then when the pond fills back up next spring, you've got a population of fish that has adjusted to their volume of water and the size of that pond as it's drawn down. And then as long as it fills back up next spring, there's probably not any long-lasting effects. But if it stays drawn down for 8 months or 10 months, that can have an impact, and you might need to restock some fish, especially forage fish. But if a pond is down now and it comes back up next March or April, here's what will happen. Is those fish that have adjusted their numbers for that smaller size pond now have 30% more surface area and double the volume of water. They're going to respond by reproducing. And what will happen is the forage fish will reproduce first. And they will just explode. The game fish will be right behind them. And then the young of the year game fish and existing game fish will have a bigger food chain to eat. So you'll see a good growth curve of fish coming up, for 18 months or 2 years. So that could be a good thing. There's Willie Howe, next door neighbor. Hello, Willie. Let's see, Danny Mac. The only predator we've seen is a young hawk trying to grab fish but unable to commit to hitting the water. That's pretty cool. I've watched ospreys dive down, land in the water, and then flap their wings 3 times and come back up holding a half-pound bluegill in their talons. It's pretty cool to see, unless you like bluegill, or it's probably not so cool for the bluegill, but it's really fun to watch that. Gene Saunders, hashtag Pond Boss. You got it there, Gene. Hey, little commercial. Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year. Had a guy call me that's been watching these shows. Matter of fact, there he is, Tim Stewart. Tim Stewart says, he called and left a message. I called him back, and Tim says, Hey, I just might break down and subscribe to the magazine. So I love that. $35 a year. And Tim, you got enough nuggets on the phone. You know what's going on. $35 a year. Inside, all kinds of great information. Ads. I see Scott Hohensy checking in. We love Purina Mills. Purina Mills has made a commitment to provide products for our niche, our industry. So there's great foods. Another hats off to Texas Hunter for making great feeders to provide that, put that feed out in the water so the fish can eat it. You know, Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year. Debbie and I are going to go out next Friday night. It's going to cost me $40. $40. That'll be gone Saturday. This lasts for a year. So Tim, enjoyed the conversation with you, man. And you got the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like, share this to your timeline. You're eligible for a drawing for a hat and a mug. Now this mug's got something in it. Yours probably won't, because it's going to come in the mail. And if there is something in it, I'll drink it before it comes. So at 7:21, we got 19 more minutes or not. So pitch me a few questions. Let's see, what else can we talk about winterizing a pond? I've talked a little bit about how water behaves. Oh, you know what I didn't talk about, the way water behaves, is water being the universal solvent. It's going to dissolve everything it can. And when your ponds turn over here in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see things moving to the edges. You're going to smell smells that are musty. That's the pond water cleansing itself. So the more movement we get, rains we get, things like that, that's going to help water expedite its cleansing ability. Aeration systems, that's part of what they do, is help your water be autonomous and consistent, and helps it cleanse itself. And then as these plants begin to fall to the bottom, some plant material will die. It's going to want to decompose. It can only decompose in the presence of oxygen. Clayton Bounds, the only way to get more out of Pond Boss Magazine is to subscribe for multiple years at a time and grab a few subscriptions for family and friends. Sharing is caring. Clayton, Nan, I'm going to be sending you a hat tomorrow, dude. Appreciate that. But yes, there's Bruce. Hey, Bruce. Good to see you, Bruce Condello, checking in from, I hope you're in Lincoln, Nebraska. I bet you are. I know you were in Tennessee over the weekend. So, Bruce gets to do some pretty cool stuff. And I tell you, Bruce is one of the brilliant minds that, even though he's not a fisheries biologist, yeah, he really is. Because he gets this stuff. He really does. There's Clark Cole. Hey, Clark. Kurt Kruger, can we put stripers in a 1-acre lake that has golden shiners in it for a year? Kurt from Denver. Yeah, you sure can. And matter of fact, I'd be doing that the next 6 weeks. And if you need a source, call me. I know all the sources and be glad to turn you in onto them and tune you into them. Hey, Clark, sorry you're late. Hey, man, it's what happens when you work late. No worries, buddy. We've been talking about you. Not really. So I did say hello to Tyler. Look forward to meeting Tyler one of these days. What else about winterizing the pond? Let's see, Tim Stewart. When I install this aeration system in my half-acre pond, he's got a pond in Florida, by the way. Should I just have it run for a short period each day at the beginning and slowly add time until it's running all the time? Also, should I keep it a few feet off the bottom here in Florida? You know what? Follow the manufacturer's instructions. I'm going to tell you in Florida, yes, run it for a few minutes each day. Start off 15 minutes and double it every day until you're running 24/7. Now, I don't think that your water temperature is going to get too low. You know, when the water temperature hits about, I'm going to tell everybody else, when the water temperature hits about 55, there's no need to aerate anymore because you're going to have autonomy top to bottom with the water. And aerating it more is not better. It doesn't help. And then when the water temperature gets above, Tim, for example, if your water temperature is above about 83, then I would put it on a timer and I would run it from 9 at night till 9 in the morning. You want to keep your water temperature 83 degrees or lower. That's the magic number. Jonathan Stoddard, thinking about drilling a well and using well water to help keep our pond full. Is there anything we should consider? Is that a good idea or a bad idea? There's Karen Lundquist. Hello, Karen. Good to see you. Frank Condello. Hello, Frank. Hello, Daddy Condello. Good to see you, man. Hey, Karen, tell John howdy. We'll be ringing him before long just to catch up. Let's see. Jonathan, about drilling. Well, okay, here's you some information about a well. Write this down, boys. If you got a Crayola and a Big Chief tablet, write this down. 1 acre, are you listening? 1 acre, 1 inch deep is 27,000 gallons. So if you've got, what was it? Let me see here. Keep your pond. Okay, you didn't say how big your pond is. having a well to keep your pond full is a good idea if you have the volume of water and the water chemistry is good. There are some aquifers around the nation. There's one in central Alabama. There's one in West Texas. There's several in West Texas. There are some in central Louisiana where the gypsum count, the sulfur and phosphorus count is too high. So I would find somebody with a well, do some water chemistry, and check your volume. Here's where I'm going. If you've got a 2-acre pond and you want to keep it full, and the water, and you're in the south, your evaporation rate on the hottest days is going to be half an inch a day. So a 2-acre pond is going to lose 27,000 gallons a day. So divide that by 24 hours and 60 minutes in an hour, and that tells you how many gallons per minute are evaporating. That's going to tell you if your well has enough volume to keep your pond full. So volume is a big deal. Dave Davidson, in previous issues, info from previous issues, go to the Pond Boss Forum for info. Bill Cody has been listing the topics for years. Contact the Pond Boss office to purchase it. Okay. So here's what Dave is saying. Thank you for that plug, Dave. On the Pond Boss Forum, pondboss.com, Ask the Boss. It's in, I think, the second forum from the top. You can click on that, and every issue of Pond Boss magazine that's ever been published, the name, the topics, the headlines of each article is in there. Bill Cody's done that since its inception. This is Pond Boss's 28th year, I think. Well, I noticed earlier we got one subscriber that's been going at it for 30 years. You got a 2-year jump start on us. But anyway, you can go back and see listings of all the articles that have been published in the magazine. And I promise you, there's something in there for everybody. Appreciate that heads up there, Dave Davidson. Tom Davis from Ohio. Good to see you, Tom. Jonathan Stoddard, 1.5 acres. Okay, so Todd, on your worst day of evaporation in a 1.5 acre pond, you're going to lose, what's that? What's 27,000 plus half of that divided by 2? That's how much water you're going to lose. So you're going to lose about 18,000 gallons per day, something like that. Yeah, give or take a little bit. I can't do that math in my head, but so you divide that by 24 and divide that by 60. That's how many gallons per minute. My best guess for a 1.5 acre pond, if you've got a 15 to 18 gallon per minute well, that will help you keep it topped off. If you want to fill a pond that big, probably need 25 gallons per minute to fill it. So there you go. It's 7:28. I can take another question or two, but in the meantime, Bob Lusk, Institute of Higher Pondology is coming up. I got room for up to 3 more people, at least 1 more. I want 1 more. So just 1 guy out there. There's Chico, Mike Garcia checking in, just talking about the Institute. Chico, Mike Garcia is going to be there, and he's going to video a pretty good amount of the Institute of Higher Pondology. Now, I don't know how much of that we're going to use, how we're going to use it. He and I are going to talk about that. We might just be using it as a tease to get more people to want to come, but there's going to be such great information coming from this with this whole crowd of people that are coming that I do want to figure out how to share it. We'll probably sell some. I don't know, but Mike is a professional videographer, and he's going to come help us with it and hang out. And plus, he's fun to talk to because he's an outstanding fisherman. He's a kayak angler, so he spends a lot of time on the water. And man, there's some things he knows that's going to be fun just to hang out with him. There's Derek Wolf. Hey, Derek, we're about to wrap it up, but it's been a pretty good session tonight. I think we've had a really good show. We've had some good information. Talked mostly about what to think about with the upcoming fall seasons headed into winter about your ponds. So, guys, if you have any questions, send them to me. Frankly, I'll answer them when I get to them. You can PM me. You can send info@pondboss.com email. And when I get the chance to answer, I'll do it. But I take care of paying customers first. I take care of subscribers and clients first. So I'll get to it, but I don't know when. It might take me a couple of days. It might take me 30 minutes if I'm sitting in line and waiting on my wife to get her nails done or something, which I don't do that. So anyway, I think that'll about wrap us up. Remember, the Institute of Higher Pondology, if you want information about that, send an info@pondboss.com or send me an email at boblusk@outlook.com. I'll send you the flyer about the Institute of Higher Pondology, And we get you cranked up on that. If you're ready for a subscription to the Pond Boss magazine, we can take care of that. If you want to see what it looks like, let us know. We'll send you one. So until next Wednesday, thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Had a good time, and you guys had some good questions. Keep it up. Next Wednesday. Adios.